Welcome to our series on the outside and the inside of leadership, where we focus on the outside skills as well as the inside of life transformation needed for enduring and sustainable Christian leadership. Today, we want to focus on an insight of the leader. The stress-tested leader overcomes in spiritual warfare. What is spiritual warfare? COVID-19 was a time of spiritual warfare. Due to the stresses upon churches that season, I saw, relationships strain, ministries crack, and even churches move towards splitting. And I realized that prior to COVID-19, relationships, conflicts, and ministry weaknesses had not been properly processed. The overall stress of urgent tasks and lesser communications imposed by the lockdown caused many of these relational and process gaps to break up. And so I submit to you a definition of spiritual warfare. When weaknesses in relationships, health, mental wellness, and organizations continue to exist, the devil attacks these crack points, causing an overwhelming stress point at an inopportune time that seeks to derail God's purposes. From the devil's viewpoint, the cracks allow a spiritual attack. But from our viewpoint, these gaps need a preparation for a stress test. To overcome in spiritual warfare requires preparing our lives for such a stress test. Are there such cracks in your family, in your workplace relationships? Are there such cracks in your health, your mental wellness? Are there such cracks in your organizational processes? Would they be ready for a stress test? How can you give attention to them to ready them for that stress test? And let me share some thoughts about a leader that is stress tested. Such a leader, firstly, is alert. In the US Army, there are codes of battle readiness that a soldier or an army camp needs to be ready for. A green alert is business as usual, and such times the soldier goes on routine life and leisure. A yellow alert is battle ready, and the equipment and arms must be prepared and stacked for use. A red alert is not only battle ready, but the alertness to respond at a moment's notice. And in that last situation, the enemy could be firing on them at any time. Soldiers would be rostered on active groups rotating 24/7 just to watch out for this. The Bible tells us, therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. Pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. And with this in mind, be alert and always keep praying for all the saints. A stress-tested leader watches the arenas of ministry, work, personal, hygiene, and family. Is this that's happening a possible attack? Secondly, a leader that is stress-tested works to process and shore up gaps. Such leaders do not survive a spiritual attack and then return to business as usual. They think and reflect upon the gaps revealed by the spiritual attack. Such attacks serve as a stress test for that work life, family life, health or mental wellness, and ask why did it not hold up well. They ask what gaps were revealed, what they need to do. Now, some gaps are quickly addressed. They could be diet, sleep, change of habits. Some take longer to address, for example, winning trust, apologizing, or reconciling. And some take a long time to process, for example, overcoming inner hurts, going for counseling. But leaders who overcome spiritual warfare intentionally work out processes and shore up gaps. And finally, a leader that is stress-tested puts God's purpose as one's driving life goal. They seek to get one's family, mental models, and work life up to better and better holistic health where possible, in order to serve God for the long haul and serve God's purposes well. They don't complain that their health is poor, or their marriage partner is unideal, or that their children are difficult. They accept what they have in life. They seek to grow it to health as far as possible for the purpose of serving God as well as they can. Now, a number of things could derail our passion for God. Poor health, unhealthy family dynamics, inappropriate relationships or entertainment, poor financial organization. The list goes on. But leaders that overcome warfare begin to work on these areas and to learn godly ways of navigating them so as to bring them back to spiritual fitness in God's eyes. A wise pastor I once consulted shared that it was a real challenge to grow spiritually under fast-paced and hectic lifestyles. And he shared how often he would face stress in relationships, how that would affect his thinking and emotions. But as he learned to process them and return to God to deal with them, he realized that each downtime he experienced got shorter and shorter over the years. What discouraged him for weeks would later only last 1 week. What made him down for a week later would become a couple of days. What pulled down his ministry productivity for a couple of days now lasted just a couple of hours. He was learning to reflect upon those gaps in his emotions and mental models and adjusting them to shore them up. You know, James tells us, "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him." May you strengthen your life arenas to be able to undergo that stress test that will enable you to be an overcomer of spiritual warfare and receive God's blessings upon your leadership in your church life.